I was thinking as you were talking about the environment and how, like, slipping in like the gray crayon into the box when you know that might be what they need next. How how do places like InWorks really facilitate flow as an environment, and how can instructors replicate pieces of that into coursework either in person or online?
I think that answer's a little different for each InWorks course. There's always sort of a core of design, and there's always sort of a core of uh, building skills. So, for the fundamentals of computation class that I'm teaching this fall, that starts with, how do I code? How do I even get started in basic programming? Because there's an expectation that in order to do anything, you have to build up skill, right? To really hit flow. And Sawyer talks about this a lot more when he talks about the athletic teams or the music ensembles. To really hit flow, you have to have a basis of skill that's pretty solid, right? It can't be the case that I'm going back and figuring out my scales if I'm trying to jump into an improv group. Mm. One of the things that makes those group flow dynamics work is that I trust everyone to have their expertise nailed. And I just have to worry about the saxophone piece, the part I'm playing, because I know the guy on drums kit and the gal on saxophone and all of they have their parts, they know how to handle that trumpet. I'm not worried about them handling their expertise. I can sit in mine and trust that when it comes my turn, they're going to have my back. They're going to support me with their expertise. And so part of an InWorks class is making sure you have that basis. What is that basis? In some classes, that's developing some CAD 3D prototyping skills. In some classes, that's developing some data science analytics. In other classes, it's much more about the human component. How do you get to know what users really need and want in a different environment? How do you learn that stuff? Which is why, in an ideal world, when I have students come together for capstone, there would be a mix of skills and they'd be able to draw from each other just like a great jazz quartet does and lean on each other for those different components and really create something innovative. Unfortunately, we haven't had sort of that critical mass of people get through our minor yet to the point where I can create those teams sort of with mixed expertise in a way that really gels. But it does go back to sort of a pedagogical principle, which is I want people to bring their whole selves into the class, right? So just because you're a computer science major, that doesn't mean you don't know anything about gardening. Right. And just because you're a business major doesn't mean you don't know anything about children, or about sewing face masks or something. There's the world is complex. It throws very different challenges at us all the time. And I think one of the things we accidentally do is tell students, anything that's not on your CV or on your transcript, I don't care about when you walk into this class. I want you to just be this major or the thing we're talking about today. And I can't put myself in a box. That doesn't work for me. So I'm hoping, they can bring themselves in to the extent they're comfortable sharing. But I think learning and by extension, reaching flow requires some vulnerability. You take a risk, you learn from it, you do the next piece, you learn from that. And as long as you can't be vulnerable, as long as it's a scary thing to be vulnerable in that learning environment, you're not going to get there. Yeah. There's a lot of trust to hit flow, especially in group flow. And I keep talking about Keith Sawyer rather than Csikszentmihalyi a little bit because I think that's what we have to get to in a classroom, is that you trust me and I can riff as an instructor and give you the pieces. I can set you up to succeed by my solo or whatever I'm doing. And then I trust that you're going to give it your all to try to do the next piece. The best team designs that have happened in my class have come from teams that really did play together like a great basketball team, right? They really trusted each other to catch the ball when one of them dropped it, to, excel at the pieces they knew they could excel at.
I so appreciate the idea of bringing in the whole person, because I feel like a lot of our I don't know, a lot of the experiences I can think about with flow have happened with things that I really enjoy and that are meaningful to me. So I think that's really important. Um, the one thing that I've noticed when I've been to InWorks is that, I haven't ever attended one of your courses, but just being in that space, there seems to be people there who are completely distraction resistant. Like they are so uberly focused on, and they're in that flow space. You can tell, like they are working on something, and that's their full concentration is on that project. And I think it's so great that we have a space like that and on our campus that students can go and do something like that. That's either personal or for a course.
Some of that flows out of the InWorks policy around what can you do in the space. So some of our workshops and labs on campus are so busy, so booked, that the thing you're allowed to do when you enter that space is the project for the class for which you've paid fees this semester. And that's architecture, that's engineering, that's a bunch of the different spaces on campus. You literally can't use the 3D printer or the laser cutter or whatever tool unless it is in the service of a class. And in some cases, you can't even enter the space unless it's the same semester that you're taking the course. And InWorks has always taken a different approach, which is that I don't care what you're working on, because it's going to help you remember your skills. It's going to help you gain more faculty with, doing more detailed work or more specialized work with that tool. And I don't care if it's a personal project, a gift for a friend. I don't care. I mean, it is the case that I'll make you pay for your own materials. And if somebody else is on deadline for a class, I'll make you jump off so that they can work. But our policy has always been that if you need to tinker, you tinker. And isn't tinker just another word for play? If you want to try something just to see if you can make it work, why not? If you need to use a sewing machine, not in the service of a project, but because your favorite pair of shorts have a hole in the pocket, bring them in. I mean, this is not let's not lock down the tools like that. That's a big difference from other spaces on campus, other universities I've run into. But you do need that open space where it's not necessarily about finishing the assignment. It's about, I'm curious, I want to know, can I get the red light to light up on my Arduino board? Can I get the sensor to work this way? Can I, sew this thing in a certain construction? What can I accomplish, or what can my team accomplish? And yeah, I've seen flow happen. People lose track of time in InWorks all the time. And we have to kick them out when we're closing the doors and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, the beauty of kind of that flexible approach is that I think about, and I've just been kind of following from the sidelines a little bit, but as the complex world changes, things like when COVID came up, right, you had a space and people who could put together a bunch of PPE, right?
Yeah, that's right. And Make for COVID grew so far beyond the spearhead that InWorks started with. Talk about a self-motivated project. We had over 2,000 volunteers at one point actively working on everything. A core of about 500 who were turning in stuff on a regular basis. And our sewing crew is still working hard on face masks. So it's interesting to me that, part of that is also having a purpose, right? So flow doesn't have to have a lofty goal associated with it. It can just be learning a video game, or it can be, I don't know, have you ever watched a preschooler get way into an art project or building Lego?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it does not have to be about saving the world. It really doesn't. And they are so engrossed, and they're happy. You know that they are just doing this because they enjoy it and figuring it out. And they might get frustrated because it doesn't go how they want, bang it around a little bit and have to start over. But then it happens, I think, that when we do have a lofty goal, we do have something we're really invested in for our community, for our families, for our profession, whatever it is, then you have this resource, which is you have developed this long, this more in-depth version of attention. And I think that's one of the things flow gives people is after a while, you know, you can stay focused and incrementally improve something to the point where, okay, this is going to work. This is the version we need. And it's been 10 hours, but you feel like it was 10 minutes or only an hour or whatever. And so you can use that expanded sense of attention, deepened sense of attention on something you do really care about. Right. But it's like anything else. Practice makes better. So
absolutely.
Thank you, Andrea. I want to comment one more thing. It's like one of the pages I have bookmarked in Csikszentmihalyi's book on creativity. It says, he writes, some of the most creative breakthroughs occur when an idea that works well in one domain gets grafted onto another one and then revitalized. Wow. And that goes to that idea of the whole self, the whole person coming into my class, because I don't know what other techniques, other things they have that they might be able to fuse into what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And if I tell them to leave all that aside, I've circumvented sort of that key point of creativity of being able to fuse a technique or an idea from somewhere else onto the thing we're doing now.
As you were talking, this is so goofy. Dennis will probably need to cut this out, but in my head I was thinking like, this is part of the reason IKEA is so successful is because you get into that flow of building furniture and then I was thinking like, and you hack it, right? There's so many IKEA hacks where you're bringing your own skill set and your own design into the process. So that's my theory why IKEA is so successful.
Well, and it's cheap enough that you feel comfortable painting it or recovering it or whatever.
Exactly.
It's like the humble theory, right? You know, if it's a humble enough start, we feel like if we see a friend's idea and it's doughy and half made, we can contribute to it. But if it comes to us fully formed and like shiny and polished, we're like, well, that looks good. I'm going to not disrupt you from making progress. And that's something else I have to tell students is, you know, you're going to get a prototype in front of possible users, let the wires show.
Yeah.
Because then they feel like they can contribute and give you feedback. Otherwise, they're going to tell you, oh, that's beautiful. You're done. Good. Not going to give you any significant feedback because they don't want to they don't want to cause you harm. And that's actually a lot of people's first instincts to trying out a new prototype. And I feel the same way about my course design. If I don't let the wires show or the loose threads show just a little bit, then when I ask students for feedback, they're like, yeah, maybe I had a problem with this one little thing, but I'm not going to tell her because I'm the only one who had that problem. But if I let the loose threads show just a little bit, then they'll tug on them and say, yeah, that could have been more like this for me. And then I'll know.
I love that.
I love let the wire show.
Yeah.
I got that from a professor who's passed away named Mike Eisenberg, who was a computer science and cognitive scientist at Boulder.
Wow.
That was his thing was, you know, when you build something, let the wires show.